Cinematic close-up of Emily Carson, mid-30s, standing at her white suburban mailbox in Willow Creek Estates at sunset. She holds an official-looking HOA envelope with trembling fingers, her expression tense and uncertain. The street behind her is immaculate. Trimmed lawns, identical houses, a false sense of peace. Warm golden light contrasts with her anxious face, symbolizing tension beneath perfection. The HOA board meeting that night was packed. Every chair filled, every wall lined with people who'd finally had enough. You could feel it in the air, the tension, the anticipation, the exhaustion of a community that had been silenced for too long. Wide shot of Emily Carson watering flowers in her front garden on a peaceful morning in Willow Creek Estates. She smiles slightly, unaware of the conflict ahead. The maple tree glows orange under gentle sunlight, and her beige cardigan and blue top match the calm atmosphere. Neighbors in the background wave casually, including Sharon Wells, late 50s, Platinum Bob, in a pastel blazer, smiling politely from her porch with arms crossed. The fluorescent lights hummed above us like a warning, and the room felt smaller than it had ever been. Sharon sat at the head of the long oak table, her usual smug composure barely holding. She wore her signature pearl necklace, lips pressed tight, eyes darting between papers that no longer protected her. Interior shot of a community clubhouse conference room with fluorescent lighting. Sharon Wells, late 50s, pearl necklace and pastel blazer, sits at the head of the table with papers neatly arranged before her, wearing a tight, performative smile. Around her are other HOA members. In the foreground, Emily Carson listens quietly, uneasy but polite, wearing her beige cardigan. Subtle tension in the air. I stood at the front, clutching the folder that had taken me months to build. Emails, letters, recordings, proof of every rule she had twisted and every dollar she had misused. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't. "Let's begin," she said sharply, pretending she still had control. But everyone knew the truth. Control had already slipped through her fingers. Daytime scene of Emily Carson in her backyard beside a wooden fence being replaced by contractors. She inspects the work, focused and calm. A black SUV idles suspiciously in the distance, partly hidden behind a tree. Sharon Wells watching discreetly from inside. The state investigator, seated quietly at the back, had arrived 15 minutes earlier. Nobody expected him to show. Not even Sharon. His presence alone changed everything. I took a slow breath and began. 3 months ago, I said, I received a fine for a fence that didn't violate a single rule. When I asked for clarification, I was ignored. When I appealed, I was threatened. When I refused to pay, my account was reported as delinquent. Tonight, I'm not here to argue that fence anymore. I'm here to show you what's really been happening behind those closed meetings. Close-up shot of Emily Carson's hands holding a bright orange HOA violation notice near her mailbox. The words "unauthorized modification" are visible in bold letters. Her knuckles tighten on the paper as her garden and house blur in the background. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded. Others looked down, guilty, maybe, for believing the lies for so long. I opened the folder and spread out the documents. These, I continued, are copies of expense reports, signed by our treasurer and countersigned by Sharon, authorizing administrative reimbursements with no receipts attached. Over $9,000 in the last fiscal year alone. Sharon's voice cracked. "That's a confidential." "No," interrupted the investigator, calm but firm. "It's not. Not when community funds are involved." Evening shot of Emily Carson standing by her window, blinds slightly open, watching a car idling outside her home under a street lamp. Inside, warm interior light falls on her worried face. Outside, Sharon Wells' figure is faintly visible behind the wheel, her silhouette cold and controlling. The room went dead silent. I kept going. The fear that had once strangled me was gone, replaced by something else. Conviction. "These," I said, holding up another set of pages, "are violation notices, every single one sent in the last 6 months. And do you know what they all have in common? They were issued to homeowners who spoke up at previous meetings. Whispers erupted. Heads turned. Faces that once looked away now locked eyes. Night scene of Emily Carson sitting at her kitchen table, papers, letters, and a laptop scattered in front of her. A small desk lamp illuminates her determined face. She's exhausted but resolute, preparing evidence against the HOA. Across the room, Tom, the neighbor who used to mow his lawn at dawn just to stay off Sharon's radar, slowly stood. "That's true," he said quietly. "I got one for a trash can left out 5 minutes too long. Never had one before." Then another voice, "Me too, over a garden flag." And another, "She fined me for leaving a window cracked." The tension snapped. The illusion shattered. Sharon slammed her folder shut. "This is a coordinated attack. None of this proves anything." Wide cinematic shot inside the crowded community meeting room. Emily Carson stands confidently at the front holding a folder of documents. Sharon Wells sits at the head of the table, visibly defensive. Around them, dozens of neighbors watch closely, some angry, some supportive. But her voice shook. I looked her straight in the eye. "You said you wanted order. What you built was fear." For a long, unbearable moment, she said nothing. Then finally she laughed. That brittle, hollow kind of laugh that sounds like denial more than amusement. "You think you've won?" she sneered. "You think tearing this apart makes you a hero? This community needs control. Without it, people like you ruin everything." I took a step forward. "No, Sharon. People like you already did." Close-up shot of Emily Carson spreading papers and printed emails across the HOA table. Her face steady, eyes locked on Sharon Wells, whose composure cracks. The documents are visibly marked with financial records. A male state investigator sits quietly in the background, observing. And with that, I placed the final piece of evidence on the table, a printed email from her personal account. The one she accidentally copied to the management company. In it, she admitted to making an example out of me to keep others compliant. The investigator reached forward, taking the page. The look on his face said it all. That was the moment everything broke. Her authority, her power, her reign, gone in a heartbeat. Voices rose. The crowd that once feared her began to demand answers. Questions. Accountability. For the first time, Sharon was cornered, not by rules but by the truth. She tried to regain composure, standing tall, but the weight of her own arrogance dragged her down. "This meeting is over," she said, voice trembling. The investigator shook his head. "No, it isn't." And then, in front of everyone, he announced what we'd all been waiting to hear. A formal state investigation into the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Exterior night shot of Emily Carson walking out of the HOA building under a streetlight, clutching her folder of documents. Her posture is upright, strong. Neighbors stand behind her applauding quietly, while Sharon Wells watches from the doorway in disbelief. You could feel it, the wave of collective relief, disbelief, vindication. The kind of moment that makes all the sleepless nights worth it. Sharon's face drained of color. The woman who'd fined children for sidewalk chalk now stood speechless in her own courtroom of judgment. As I gathered my papers, she leaned in close, whispering through gritted teeth, "You'll regret this." I met her eyes, steady, unflinching. "Not anymore." Then I walked out. The night air hit me like freedom. Morning wide shot of Emily Carson walking down the neighborhood street, smiling peacefully. Children ride bikes, neighbors chat across lawns. The maple tree in her yard glows with fresh leaves. Sharon Wells' house sits empty in the background, curtains drawn. Neighbors followed, some clapping, some hugging, others just breathing for the first time in what felt like years. For the first time, Willow Creek didn't feel like a prison. Felt like a neighborhood again. The months that followed felt strangely quiet, like the aftermath of a storm that had torn through everything, leaving behind an unsettling calm. For the first time in nearly a year, I could walk to my mailbox without dread. No orange slips, no passive-aggressive letters, no threats disguised as reminders. Just the ordinary rhythm of life: bills, coupons, a flyer for a local farmer's market. But the neighborhood itself had changed. Cinematic close-up of Emily Carson leaning gently on her repaired wooden fence at sunset, looking reflective but at peace. The fence is sturdy, newly painted. The golden sky glows behind her, and the suburban neighborhood stretches quietly in the distance. Where once there was suspicion, there was now conversation. People really talked, for the first time in years. They shared stories, frustrations, laughter. They compared notes on what the old board had done, piecing together the larger pattern of manipulation and intimidation that had ruled Willow Creek for so long. The power that once hung over everyone's heads had vanished. Not overnight, but piece by piece, as transparency replaced fear. Continues through final reflection exactly as your narration, unchanged, until the closing line. Because when you refuse to back down, when you fight for what's right, even the smallest homeowner can shake the biggest system. So tell me, if your peace was threatened in your own neighborhood, how far would you go to take it back?